Hey, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be working with IOD's molds, and this is going to be one of the newest release molds that we have, and it is called Specimens, and it's all these fun bugs. So we're going to be using that, and we're going to be using them, we're going to apply them to this long planter box, because I think it's just perfect to put bugs on. So let's get started. Okay, so the planter box, I want to start out with one of the bigger molds. So this guy right here is the biggest one that will fit. I really like these two, but they're too tall, so they're not going to fit on here properly. So this is going to be the big one, but I want to center him. I have this idea. Need my pencil. I have a plan to put the biggest one in the center and then gradually decrease them in size as I go across. So we are going to say that looks like 20 inches. So 10 inches will be center. Good enough. Okay, so that's marked. Got my little mark. So this is just your normal anywhere grocery store, Walmart, dollar store cornstarch. And a dollar store makeup brush. And I'm just making sure that I'm getting that cornstarch in all the little grooves in my mold. And my clay. So this is the clay that I'm using. It's IOD's air dry clay, and it's super soft and squishy and really easy to work with. This is a good clay to use in these molds. But I keep mine, once I've started using it, I keep it in a mason jar. This is actually a little bit wet because as I'm going, the little pieces of clay that I grab from my mold as I'm making it, I always put them back. So they end up getting kind of dry because of the cornstarch and just being exposed to the air. So sometimes I'll save them in this jar and then I'll mist it with distilled water once in a while. Actually, this isn't bad now that I'm playing with it. So if you keep them in a jar like this, even like rock hard bits of your IOD clay, put it in a jar and then just mist it a little once in a while with distilled water. I use distilled water because there's no residual bacteria or anything in that. So now I'm going to just push this clay into all those little spots with the side of my thumb, right up to that micro rim that is all along the edges. I kind of have just the right amount of clay. That doesn't happen very often. Okay, zoomed you in a little bit. So this is just a regular putty knife, and I'm just going to gently scrape across that. Now all these little bits, these are what I'm talking about, these little extras. So I just keep them in this jar. I never throw any of it away. Always keep it in the jar. So none of it goes to waste. Grabbing some of those biddies. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of cornstarch down on my surface, just so when I rotate these molds out, they don't stick fast to my table. I don't think I have enough cornstarch. In my mold, they don't want to come out. Yeah. Okay. So this is pretty juicy. See how it's cleaned that out completely? So there was not enough, it was too wet, not enough cornstarch. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to make sure I have enough cornstarch in here. Just going to knock out the excess. So there's a lot more in there now. I'm going to grab some more clay. Work this up a little bit. Get it into those antennae. Okay. Now, same thing. I'm just going to push this down just to make sure that I'm getting the clay pushed right into all of the detail in the mold first off. And then I've got a little bit extra, so I'm just lightly going to skim the top where it was pretty thick. I'm just making sure that that micro rim is clean. It looks like a hot mess all around here, but as long as you can make out that micro rim all the way around, you know you'll get a nice, good casting. It doesn't matter about all the mess on the rest of it. Okay. Now let's see if this guy's going to come out this time. There we go. So it should come out nice and easy like this, where I'm just rolling him out of the mold. So see how good he looks? Looks beautiful. Beautiful for a bug. Okay. Now I like to glue my molds down right away. And this guy is going to go right here. So this is Tight Bonds, Quick and Thick in the US. It's called No Run, No Drip here in Canada. I got this at Windsor Plywood, for those of you who are watching from Canada. That's where I got it from. It's almost empty, so it's hard to squeeze out. There we go. So now I'm going to push this glue onto the complete back. I don't want to miss any spots. So I'm just using my finger. You can use a spatula or whatever you choose to use. I just find it's easier with my finger. Messier, but easier. Okay. Now I've got my little center line just marked right here. So I'm going to try to get this guy down in the center. So we'll see how that works out for me. And I'm going to be painting this whole thing after, so I'm not worried about a little bit of glue that might be squeezing out. So there's one bug right in the center. And now I'm going to continue on with some other guys. Okay, I'll clean. And now we're ready to glue these babies on here. So I kind of like how they're situated. I just want to even them out a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. The clay's already starting to get kind of crusty. I like it. Let's start gluing. So only the middle guy is glued at the moment. And I'm just gently pushing down on the edges to make sure that's all adhered. When you're putting the glue on these little delicate bits, and especially they've been out for a little while now and they're starting to kind of form a crust, you have to be really careful that you don't break them off. Like these little feet, or whatever those are starting to get pretty crunchy. So I don't want to break them off. Okay. They are all glued on. And now I'm going to put a base coat of paint on here. I think that turned out pretty good. Okay, so I've been thinking, and I think I'm going to go with a charcoal color. I think I'm going to go with cast iron. Fusion's cast iron. Cast iron is one of the newest colors that came out in the last color release. So Fusion's cast iron, and I'm going to go first around the little bugs. And I'm still being fairly gentle because they're freshly glued. And they've formed a crust, but they're still, you can still smush them, so you got to be careful. Okay, I think I got every little spot. So the thing with these molds is, as they dry, they will crack a little bit. And for that reason, I'm going to finish painting this first coat on the whole piece, but then I'm going to let it dry overnight. And then I can come back in and do touch-ups, because once the clay cracks, you're going to see that bright white clay again. And you don't want that. So I'm just going to go ahead and paint the rest of this initial coat. Okay. Oh, so this guy is moving. So I'm going to push him back up. The quick and thick isn't quite heavy duty enough for that big bug. Still wanted to slide on me. Okay, so I'm just going to set that on there. And then these should all dry good and where they belong. And then we will check on it in the morning and do any touch-ups. See any white spots that are missed or where the clay will crack overnight as it dries. And we will go from there. But the paint on top of the wet clay does slow down that drying process a little bit. So, like I said, it does alleviate some of those cracks. But I'll be back in the morning when this is all dry, and then we'll do the fun stuff. Good morning. Okay, so we're back, and my little bug, and the little bug planter has dried overnight. So I'm just going to bring it up here so you can see where we've got only one major crack, and that happened right in between the head and the body of this big guy. So I don't know if I had kind of stretched it when I had laid it on here, but lots of times they just they crack in good places. So you could fix this with clay, but I'm just going to leave it because once I paint it, it's not going to be a big deal. And you can see along the edges of some of the other ones where it's kind of shrunk as it's dried, and it's left us with a little bit of white area around the bugs. So I'm just going to go in and we're going to touch up those spots. So I've got my cast iron out again, and I don't need very much, just a little wee bit. So as you can see, I can be a little rougher with them now. They're all set up. They're hard. I can't hurt them. So I can really work with my brush and get it in there and get these guys all covered up. You want to try to look at it from every possible angle so that you're sure you have no little white spots that are still visible. Perfect. Now I'm going to go ahead and give it an overall second coat. So another thing that I'm doing now is I'm trying to maintain the same brush direction even over these molds so that in between the bugs it still looks cohesive. It's harder when you're going in between details like this, but I try to maintain that same brush stroke so that you get more of a finished look. So if you can see down here, see right around this guy, you can definitely see the difference in brush strokes around these guys. Yet with these ones up here, it's more disguised. You can't really see that. And that's kind of how I want it to finish. It's just little details like that sometimes that kind of give your project just that little extra. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to let that dry a little bit. And then we're going to come at it with some copper and give it a little bit of oomph. Doesn't that look cool? I like it. I think that's going to look really cute with some greens. Okay, so now my plan is to dry brush over top of them with a copper metallic paint. So I'm going to use DIY paints. This is one of the patinas. This one's called Pennies from Heaven, and it's a copper. And you don't need very much when you're dry brushing. You just need a little wee bit. I'm trying to decide on a brush here. You want something that's flat. You don't want anything that's going to be rounded like this. At least I don't. I like this when I'm working with like a glaze or something and I really want to get it like in all those little crevices and stuff. But because I'm dry brushing and that's just kind of going over the top, I want a flat brush. That's how my brain works for this whole thing anyways. So I just have a little bit on the end of my brush. And now I'm pretty much going to dab all of it off. It's always better to start with less, and you can always add. I'm going to zoom you guys in here so you can see. Okay. So just really lightly, I'm just going to brush over the bug. See how that's just left a really, it's just getting on those high points. And you saw how much I wiped off my brush and how much I'm still getting down on these bugs. So a little goes a long way with dry brushing. That really pops them out, doesn't it? I'm trying to only get it on the bugs themselves and not around them, but we'll see how that works out. I kind of like them just like that. I don't know if I'm going to want to add anything else. I think it makes it nice and subtle. I think they appear even. This copper over the cast iron looks amazing. Okay, I'm just going to want to, I got a little bit of the copper on the outsides. So I'm just going to go in with a baby wipe now while it's still kind of fresh and try to wipe back some of that. I don't mind if it's right around, like right up close to the bug, but I don't want too much around the outside. And this is working because it's still kind of fresh. But I'm being careful not to wipe it off the bug himself. And this is also why I tend to use a paint with a built-in top coat like Fusion for my bases, because it gives me a lot more grace when it comes to this kind of thing. If I had used DIY paint and it hadn't been sealed or anything yet, this would have been kind of a challenge to wipe this back. I probably would have been better off to just try to go in and repaint close. What do you think? I think that looks pretty darn good. Look at all the details in those bugs. I can't tell if I'm focusing or not on here. Hopefully. I like this. I really like it. I think that's going to look really cute with some greens in it. I really do. And they're so subtle. Okay. That was fun. I was wondering what I was going to use these bugs on, and now I'm glad I remembered. I found this box at a thrift store, so I don't know where it came from originally. There's absolutely no markings on it whatsoever. Probably Michael's or something like that, or HomeSense, I'm assuming. But now it's a perfect little plant thing to either have as a centerpiece. You could put bugs on both sides and it would make a really great centerpiece. Or you could just place it on a windowsill with your kitchen herbs in it. That would be super cute. Well, maybe not cute. I don't know, it's bugs, right? Okay. So thank you so much for joining me this week. I'm really glad you guys take the time to hang out with me every Sunday morning. And I'm hoping that this gave you some inspiration on how to use this new mold set from IOD. This one's called Specimens. So this is available on my website, sentimentalsalvage.ca. I will put the link below. And if you have any questions whatsoever on this project, I will be more than happy to help you out. This is the clay that I used. You can use any kind of clay. This is my favorite. I just like how soft it is. I love working with this. I tried different air dry clays right in the beginning, about 6 years ago, with these kind of molds, and it wasn't good. It wasn't going to be something I wanted to do on a regular basis by any means. But the IOD's air dry clay works really, really well. And as always, if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments and I will answer your questions. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great week.